Wudi's court, Emperor Wu's court, needs to raise revenues, and it wants to do it without increasing taxes on farmers. So what does it do? The solution was to increase production, to urge farmers to move to underpopulated open land, particularly land near the borders, because if you could have farmers produce their grains near the borders, the transportation costs, the garrisons, would be much less. The second solution was to have owners of great estates expand their estates, to use their serfs or tenants to farm that land, and thus, when they were farming that land, to increase, through private investment, production. They also saw that they could tax merchants and artisans to a greater extent. They doubled the tax on the property of merchants from 3% to 6% on merchants and artisans. Right? But because they knew that merchants and artisans, people who had movable wealth like that, who weren't bound to the land, could easily hide their wealth, they also instituted a policy of offering a 50% reward for people who informed on tax evaders. The final set of measures was to expand state control over industries. The iron industry became a state monopoly, and the state was producing those very iron plows out of that monopoly. A second industry the state took over was salt production and salt sales. Now, in our society, salt is something we add to food. But in a pre-modern agrarian society, salt is the means by which one preserves food through the summer. Salt was vital to survival. So this was a lucrative state industry. And finally, the state started to play a role in the market by taking over, in some instances, wholesale trade, moving goods from one area to another where prices were low to where prices were high, or prices were high to where prices were low, in order to equalize trade, but at the same time taking over some of the profits from wholesale traders. One could argue that the policies of Emperor Wu, which were meant to raise revenue and successfully did raise revenue, that these policies were anti-merchant, that they harmed the commercial economy, that they were putting the state in charge of everything. But I think we could also see a different argument, that its military campaigns into the north and to the northwest, in fact, opened trade routes. Its campaigns to the south made connections between Southeast Asia and Han, allowing merchants greater possibilities and more activities. So what might look like draining domestic resources to open foreign adventures, to open foreign connections, can also be seen as, in fact, encouraging foreign trade. I'm not sure what the right answer to these are, but I do know that Han policies quickly caused a backlash among people loosely known as Confucian officials. And this brings us to the second option in balancing the interests or relating the interests of state and society.